you're looking at like a 2 to 3x in lead flow. And this is year over year by implementing some of these strategies.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Contractor Success Academy lesson. Joining me today is Academy mentor Spencer Powell from Builder Funnel. And for anyone who's not already familiar with Spencer's work, he is the founder of a very successful inbound marketing agency by the name of Builder Funnel. He's the host of a really good podcast called Builder Funnel Radio. You should check that out. And Spencer and his wife recently introduced a new baby boy to the world. I think Spencer by the name of Carter, right?
Yep, little Carter. He's with us now.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. So Spencer, I'm super stoked and excited about what you're going to share with all the Academy members today. Without further ado, let's hand this over to you and see what you got.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I'm really excited for today's topic and lesson as well. We're going to talk about historical blog optimization. So this is how do you go back and improve the past to increase your traffic and double your leads. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. So here's our agenda for the lesson today. We're going to talk about why blogging is important, and then we're going to jump into historical blog optimization. And what is it? And then how will it actually get you more traffic and leads? So we'll walk through that step-by-step process, and then we'll wrap up with some examples so that you can go and get some ideas and start to implement this for yourself. All right, so just a little bit more about me. I've been in the digital marketing space for 10 years. I try to read about 35 to 50 books a year. I feel like continuous learning and education is critical for most people, but especially me as a business owner. A little bit of a fun fact, you can usually find me at Chipotle 2 or 3 times a week. Little side story there, my wife and I actually have been to every Chipotle in Colorado, which maybe some of you are laughing right now and making fun of me for that. But when my wife was in law school and I was getting the business off the ground, we were working most weekends. So we made this our splurge, and we realized there were a whole bunch of these in Denver. So we just started driving around and going to them. So anyway, fun fact about me. And then since then, I've also helped construction companies generate over tens of millions of dollars over the last several years that I've been working with them. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk about why blogging is so important. And I have this photo up here because I feel like when people hear blogging, they're just like, oh, why are we talking about this? Why should we go to all this effort to write an article, publish it to our website? Why am I teaching people about things that, I'm the expert on? So let's kind of break it down and talk about why this is so important before we get to the historical optimization piece. So I want you to think about if you ever go to a conference or an event and there's a speaker up on stage, they're suddenly elevated all of a sudden because they're teaching you. They're adding value to your life. You're there to learn something. And so just by being on stage and teaching, that builds a lot of trust and credibility for that person. It's the same way with your blogging and your content on your website. So people do a Google search and they land on your site and they start to read this educational content. And now your company's trust and credibility go up. So let's look at a couple of examples on kind of how this shakes out and how this comes into play. So first, this blog on the left, 3 reasons to have a laundry room near the master bedroom. Now you may be thinking, man, this is super basic content. Everybody should know these things. But we have to remember that not everybody knows what you know. You're in the industry. You're doing remodeling projects all the time. You're building homes all the time. That's your expert knowledge. And so a lot of times your basic knowledge is your prospect's expert knowledge. And so by talking about things that you know and you've built up this knowledge base over often years and years and decades, those are all things that people that have never remodeled before have no idea. They're maybe going to do 1, 2, maybe 3 remodels in their lifetime. Most likely it's going to be 1 or 2. And so they don't know these things. And so they're going to Google to research and to look up information about how this process works. Same goes for the example on the right here. One regret most homeowners have about their kitchen renovation. Well, if you're about to remodel your kitchen, you kind of want to know what to look out for and what these pitfalls may be. And so that's a great article that addresses that. So these are just a couple of examples of hundreds of things that you could talk about, but these things raise your credibility as you start to talk about them and people find this content. All right, so that's an important piece, but this one is maybe, I don't know, it's my favorite. I don't know if it's more important, but blogging really compounds like an investment portfolio. And so the more you blog, the more traffic you can get. And what we've seen is, let's just walk through a quick example. Let's say we're publishing, say, 4 blogs a month. So that works out to 48 a year. We'll just call it 50. So if we fast forward a year from now, you have 50 blogs on your website. Now, as we go into year 2, we write 4 more. All those 50 blogs that you already wrote in the past, they're still getting indexed by Google. People are still finding them, and they're producing traffic for you. So if you fast forward several years and you have 100 blogs or 150 or 200, all those posts are continuing to work for you each and every month. So this is what it can look like over years of time blogging consistently. So you can see we're going back to the very beginning here, October of 2014, and the traffic levels are somewhere between like 250 and 500. And then as you move along, you can see by the time we ended last year, 2018, this is over 4,000 views from blogs. And again, this is that compounding effect. And you can see there's like little spikes along the way. And even in August of 2015, we're close to 1,000. It might be around 750. It's hard to tell from the chart. But that, again, is triple where you started from. So it's not like you have to wait 4 years for this all to kick in, but you make that progress, but then it can really start to build up some momentum. Now, you may be thinking, okay, traffic is nice, but that's not super tangible. But this is the impact it can have on your lead flow too. So same time frame, October of 2014, this particular website was getting 26 leads a month. Now fast forward to December of 2018, and we're getting 46 leads a month. And that may not seem like something super crazy or a big dramatic number, but it's close to double the leads. But I want you to think about that's double the leads each and every month. So if you compound that over a year, if you had 20 more leads times 12 months, what would that do for your revenue? How would that impact your business? So that's why blogging is super, super important. And what we're going to talk about today is what historical blog optimization is. So let's define it first before we jump right in. It's updating and refreshing old blog posts, and the goal is to improve the content as well as increase traffic and leads. So this is a great strategy for anybody that's been blogging for more than a year, more than 18 months, and you've got some old content that you can go back to. All right, so why does this work? Why does historical blog optimization work? And there's a few reasons. One is that Google rewards freshness. They like fresh content, which means it's current, it's up to date. And so if we go back in time and we take old posts and we update those, then now we can make sure that content is current. So an example of that might be 5 kitchen design trends to look out for in 2013. Well, 2013 has come and gone, so we kind of need to update that content. And so that could be a good candidate for a blog that we're going to maybe shift and start talking about top kitchen design trends for 2019, 2020, whatever that current year is that you're in. And the reason that this works too is that we're building off of existing search authority. So you've had this blog since 2013 or 2012. It's been around for a long time. You get to build on the authority that that post has already built up in it, but now you're improving the content and making current. So now you get the benefit of both those things in Google's eyes. You've got a credible blog that's been around, your website's been around for a while, but you've also got updated, fresh content. The other thing is that you can continue to get inbound links and new social shares to that post. So if that post, the first time around you shared it, Google recognized that, you got a little bit of credit for that social sharing, and then maybe you picked up some inbound links, which also increased the authority. Well, then you can continue to build on that. So each year, if you update it for the new trends, you can reshare it and you can get some more links so that eventually this post becomes super, super strong. So that's why historical blog optimization works really, really well. So is this really going to increase my traffic, all this effort? And here at our company, we try to use ourselves as a guinea pig, which is why I have a little guinea pig here on the slide. But we like to say, hey, here's our theory, let's test it. And so we test on ourselves. So let's walk through some of those numbers here. So I went back and I looked at our blog views in January of 2019. So this was all of our blog posts that we've ever published. We had 2,477 blog views. So, okay, that tells us something. But only 295 of those were from posts that we actually published in January of 2019. So let's look at that. We had this many, 2,400, let's call it 2,500 blog views, but only about 300 came from new posts that we published. So that means 88% of our blog traffic was coming from old posts. So posts that we had already written in the past from years and years ago, or even just the previous year. And so all that past work was bringing us a lot of traffic. So that's kind of the setup here. So here's the process. Here's what you can do. And this is what we've done, and we're continuing to do with old posts. So one, we want to find old blogs that are worth updating. So I had just given an example of that kitchen design trends of 2013. Anything that's time-stamped, trends-based, that's a great candidate. We also have some examples that I'll go through in a little bit on cost. So we talk about cost in a lot of instances. Well, that's going to change year over year. So that's a good candidate. Once you've found those blogs that you want to update, we want to update them for relevance and freshness. So again, bringing those topics to current. So anything that's outdated, in our world of marketing, there's always things that are changing. There's new social networks. So just recently, Google Plus died. So anything that we wrote in the past about Google Plus, it's pretty much irrelevant now. So we want to take that out. And the same thing goes for the construction space too. There's technology that changes, trends change. And so those things we want to bring up to date. The other thing is, hey, we already did a lot of the heavy lifting initially to write the post, but let's make it more robust now. Let's make it even better. Let's add more sections. Let's add more images, maybe more examples, give it more context, and make it the best post that we can make it. And then we want to look at conversion. So that's that fourth step there. You know, maybe we didn't have a good call to action at the end of the post, or maybe the call to action could be a little more relevant. So we want to adjust that. And then we might look at adding in some text conversion components, maybe a little bit higher up in the post. Maybe we just had some at the bottom. We said, hey, most people, they're just kind of scanning it, or they're just reading the first paragraph. We want to give them an opportunity to convert early on. And then once we've done all this, we actually republish the post as new. Keep the URL the same, probably change the title a little bit. Again, if you had 2013 in the title, we probably want to change that. We're going to publish it as new with today's date, and then we're going to re-promote it. We're going to go to social and share it, and then we're going to go to our email list and drive some traffic to it. So that's the process, and you can follow that step by step. Go back to old blogs, update them, make them more robust, look at your conversion components, and then publish them and promote them again. So let's dive into some examples on kind of how this process plays out. All right, so I'm going to use one of our posts. Again, we try to be the guinea pig with a lot of these, I don't know, crazy things that we test in the marketing world. We had one on the topic of remodeler marketing ideas. And so we created this post in January of 2017. So on the top of this chart, you can see we got some traffic, and then it just kind of bumped along there for quite some time. In July of 2018, we updated it. We added new ideas, we made it a better post, and then we published it as new and re-promoted it. And you can see the traffic just spiked, and it kind of hung in there for a little bit. It came back down, and we're starting to see that kind of level out there. But if you look at kind of that initial section of traffic, you're getting maybe 12 visits, 10 visits a month. And you're getting that each and every month. But now we're at this kind of new normal of, you know, call it 25 or 30. At the high point, it was over 100. Obviously, it didn't maintain that, But even at 25 or 30, suddenly we've doubled the traffic that this post is getting. And so think about that times 10 posts, times 20 posts. If you go back to these, if you're doubling your traffic across all these posts, that compounds pretty effectively. And then more importantly, leads. So at the beginning, we published this post. It didn't generate any leads for a long time. It was just out there getting a little bit of traffic. It did pick up one lead in January of 2018 before we updated it. But once we updated it, it started producing leads regularly. You can see it was one lead, one lead, one lead, two leads. And again, you may be thinking, one lead, that's not a big deal. But again, this is a post we already wrote. We just went back and refreshed it. Multiply that by the hundreds of blogs that we have. And if I can get one more lead or two more leads out of every post that I have, I'm going to have a lot of leads. So that was kind of one example that we tested on our site. We have a few others, and we said, okay, there's something here. This could be pretty substantial. So let's look at a few more examples. So this is a remodeling client, and for their particular blog, we looked at the same kind of numbers and metrics. We looked at January of 2019, and there were 428 total blog views, but only 156 came from posts that were actually published that month. So that means 64% were coming from old posts or posts that we had published in prior years. So I wanted to kind of dig a little bit further, and I went and looked at 2018, and you can see the numbers there, 357 total views, and 176 came from posts published that month. So 51% of blog traffic coming from old posts. I want to draw the trend line here a little bit. So you can see in 2018, 51% of traffic from old posts. 2019, it jumped to 64%. It makes sense, right? We've had a whole nother year of 2018 where we published, and now those posts are old posts going into 2019. With our blog, we had about 8 or 9 years worth of data, and so it was 88% of our traffic was coming from old posts. So as you move forward in time, you'll continue to see that your old posts are driving the bulk of your traffic.
Hey, Spencer.
Yeah.
Sorry to interject here. So I'm looking at the data, and this is really, really interesting to me. And I think that it's even more optimal than this. If you look at, for example, like 428, blog views in January of 2019, and you're looking at only 156 that came from the month of January, typically when somebody publishes a post, they go to town on sharing it immediately, right? And so that's something that usually tapers off because people, they'll share it when it's published, the day of, the week of, and they'll get the employees and staff and friends and everyone chimes in. So I think the numbers there are even kind of taper off even more after a period of time. So, this is a very, very compelling case for why you want to be optimizing those old posts. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I'll take that a next step further and go and look at those posts in January, or that were published in January and February, and see what the views were. Because you're right, they get all that promotion initially. So thanks for jumping in. Let's look at some more real examples. So this was a post, winter getaways in New Jersey. And you may be thinking, okay, well, first of all, why are we talking about winter getaways? We're in the construction space. This is a custom builder, and they are in the Poconos area. This particular client is not, but we've got another one in the Poconos. But with builders, you're kind of trying to talk about the area and why somebody would want to move to the area, participate there, buy a home there. And so they're kind of these secondary topics that we're able to talk about. So in this particular post, we published it in December of 2015. And you can see that traffic there was pretty low. It was probably in the 10, 20, 30 visits a month. Then we updated every year starting in 2017. So we did it in 2017, and then 2018. We'll do it again in 2019. And you can see this one's interesting to look at. It's a little bit different because it's a seasonal post, right? It's winter getaways. So people probably aren't looking on this topic at certain times of the year. So you can see it starts to build late summer, early fall, and then it really spikes up there. And you see that first one in December of 2017, and then it kind of falls off. But then going into the next year, we updated it again, re-promoted it, and then boom, it took off and it hit over 2,000 views. This is just one post on the site. So in this particular instance, we were able to take this traffic from even if we call it 100, I think it was less than 100, you can't really see on the chart, to over 2,000. I mean, we're talking about a 20x in traffic. And again, this is just one post. So the example I showed of our kind of guinea pig test, maybe you're looking at those numbers thinking they were pretty nominal. This is kind of the upside potential of a post that you can do really, really well with. So let's look at another one. This is the one I was kind of referring to in terms of the Poconos, best towns to visit. So again, this builder, he's trying to dominate the content space for the area. A lot of people go here and buy custom homes, vacation homes, they ski there, they maybe take summers there. And so it's important for him to attract people that are just thinking about this area. So again, we created it in March of 2015, and it just kind of bumped along there with not much going on. And then we updated it in January of 2017, and we started to push it out there and promote it. And then you can see it kind of as we entered 2018 again, republish, repromote. I mean, it just took off and exploded. And now this post is ranking organically, and you can see that big green chart is organic, which means people are finding it on Google or Yahoo or Bing. So that's kind of the traffic world. But let's start to get into a little bit more of a tangible world. I know traffic is nice, but leads are what everyone's after. And so in this particular example, we can see that it actually led to an increase in leads by 60% from one year to the next. And so that was that example of the Poconos. This particular builder, they were able to increase their traffic by a lot with several of these different posts, but then lead flow was the big one where they were able to get 60% more leads year over year. All right, let's break down one more example. This is one that I'm really passionate about the topic. So if you're in this space, you need to be talking about cost. And we could probably talk about that for a while and why you need to talk about cost, but your prospects are searching for it. And this can be one of your best performing pieces of content, is openly talking about cost, how much things cost in ranges. You don't have to give a specific cost, but that's what people want to know. And so they're going to Google and they're typing that in. So with this post, we created in March of 2017, and then we updated it in January of 2018. And so you can see initially it was getting, 10, 15 visits a month. And then after we republished it in January, it started to take off. And even throughout the year, that momentum built quite a bit. And now it's kind of averaging somewhere between 40 and 50, so a good 4x in traffic. But then the really cool part was leads, and we were able to double the number of lead conversions on blogs from 2017 to 2018. And if you can see on this screen, we had just talked about the cost of a home edition, which was this particular post. If you look at the top line on both of these, you can see in the upper one that how much does it cost for a home edition? Sorry, it's the second line. There's 2 leads. And then in 2018, it's that top one at 15 leads. So those were tied back to this one post. And so again, that increase from 2 to 15 for one post, if we multiply that across all of our old posts, you start to see a really big spike in your lead generation. And so this is what it ended up looking like holistically. So we looked at 2017, leads were about in the low 20s per month. And then in 2018, just a year later, basically over 60 a month, kind of averaging around that 50 number. And so you're looking at like a 2 to 3x in lead flow. And this is year over year by implementing some of these strategies. And so for me, I just would like to leave you with kind of a question, which is if you could triple your leads in 2 or 3 years, what would that do for your business? And could you take some of this work that you've already done and just add a little bit more to it, make some of this content a little bit better, and the output could be pretty significant. So just quickly to summarize and kind of wrap us up here, we're optimizing the past with the goal of increasing traffic and leads. And so I want to give you a couple of goals. I think a good goal for each post is to 2 or 3x the traffic to those posts. And then you want to increase your leads by 60 to 120%. And that was kind of the range that I found from going through a bunch of our data and doing these experiments. I think those are reasonable goals to expect from going through this process. But don't forget to invest in new content as well as improving old content. Because again, that new content will eventually be old content a year from now or 2 years from now. So once you've built up a pretty good backlog of blog content, we've been kind of doing an even split. So if you're doing 4 blogs a month, maybe 2 are new and 2 are optimizing the past. And then just remember, content is a long game, and that can be frustrating sometimes, but it really is, I think of it more as an investment. So for us, blogging for 9-10 years now, I mean, it has really taken off, and you can see it with traffic and lead flow. And so just keep that in mind. If you're in business for the long haul, this is a strategy that can really impact you in a positive way. And that's what I've got for today's lesson. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this on historical blog optimization.
Spencer, that was fantastic. Really, really interesting stuff. I mean, we're huge proponents of content. I think it's something that everybody needs to be doing. You obviously built the case for, why as a business owner, you should be blogging. I think, far too often people see blogging as something that, it just takes too much time and who's going to do it. And we don't like writing and yada, yada, yada. I mean, there you have it. If you're blogging, obviously you've got to go back and look at those older posts and do something with them. In fact, I'm probably going to do this right after this session because it's something that we've just, neglected. And I'm sure I'm not going to be the only one in that boat, but really interesting to have all this backed by data. It totally makes sense. And I think that for those that have been considering blogging, and I mean, we're talking blogging here, but blogging, I mean, it's SEO, this is content marketing at its finest. You've really touched on why this is important and how it can impact your business. And really, I think the most important thing to really underline here, the takeaway is that it takes time. It's not an overnight success. You're not going to get a huge amount of volume by publishing one post. It's really, you got to commit to something and do it over a long period of time.
Yeah, and I think that can be frustrating going into it when you're first getting started. You're going, oh man, I'm writing my first few posts, and you know that it's not going to be for 9 months, a year, even 2 years before you really start to see some big changes. You'll see little wins along the way, but yeah, it's just like an investment portfolio. You just keep putting money into it, and then eventually you're going, oh man, this thing is really cranking now.
Yeah. Well, I like your analogy of, you compared it to like a stock portfolio, the notion of just compounding. I always refer to it as the notion of bringing on employees, right? What happens when you bring on a salesperson? Well, that salesperson is going to go and bring you business, but now multiply that by 50. What if you had 50 salespeople working for you? And, the nice thing about blog posts is they don't call in sick. They don't take vacations, and they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is really, really important.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. I like that.
I know you leverage content. We leverage content. It works well for us. I mean, businesses in the home improvement space need to be doing this. If you don't mind, Spencer, just a couple of questions that I kind of jotted down as you were going through the lesson.
Absolutely.
Some a little bit more high level, but I think for people that are, now that they've watched and heard this lesson, I think a lot more people will be inclined to actually put some time and effort behind doing this. I think you touched on a couple, but ways to come up with blog post ideas. I mean, where does someone start? If, hey, I've got a website, I've got a blog on there, I haven't touched it in years. How do I start here,
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I find that one of the easiest ways to get started is to either, if you're the primary salesperson or, if you're not, pull in the salespeople and think about all the questions that you get asked in the sales process and start to finish. So start with whoever maybe gets on the phone and pre-qualifies, and then whoever goes on that first appointment, if you bring people in. But think about all the questions throughout the whole process. That's what people are typing into Google. They want to know the answers to those questions. And so if you're not answering it, they're finding the answer somewhere else. And so if you're in a local market and you're answering these questions, you're going to raise that level of thought leadership in your area, because people are going to do these Google searches. They're going to go, oh, I typed in this question, bang, I found the answer on this company's website, and they're going to find it on your blog. And honestly, that could generate you easily the first year or two of blogs, blog topics. The other thing that I'll just throw in there as a fun exercise is sit down in a group of maybe 2 or 3 people in your company and just think about all the different components of your business. So if you're in remodeling, maybe think about, kitchens and bathrooms, and then just think about all the little breakdowns of that. So okay, what's the process look like? How much does it cost? What are the current trends for, and this is all under kitchens, cabinet styles, all these different things. And suddenly you'll find yourself, and just set the timer for 5 minutes and just start writing down topics and ideas. And you'll find you should be able to get to 50 within 5 minutes with 2 or 3 people. And I think between those two things, you'll have blog content for quite a while.
Awesome. That's great. Love that. Nice and simple. Talk to your salespeople. Great. Another one for you. So in terms of publishing content, there's obviously more and more and more competition out there. There's more, content to sort of compete with. So how do you stand out from the crowd? I think I saw a stat, last week about the average piece of content ranking on the first page of Google right now is made up of something like 1,300 and some odd words. I mean, that's some in-depth content. Somebody who has the intention of cranking out 200-300 word posts. I mean, how do you address that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think there's a couple of things. I mean, one is what you mentioned, which is longer content, long form content tends to perform better. And that's because you end up picking up a lot of links from other sites where they just look at it and they go, wow, there's a lot here. This must be good. I'll just link to it. And then same with social shares. People will see it and they'll go, wow, there's a lot here. I'm going to share it. And so those things help that content rank. But Google also looks at it too, and they can see, hey, if somebody's interested in this topic and I can send them to one place and they can kind of get all their answers, then they like that too. And so thinking about, definitely writing content that kind of addresses a whole topic. And if you can extend it to over 1,000 words, you're better off. But we're kind of shooting for like a normal post. I would shoot for at least, 500 words up to 1,000. And then obviously you can experiment with like pretty in-depth blogs. But I think a lot of it comes down to promotion, and we forget about that piece. And so a lot of people, they hit publish and they're like, great, I got a blog on my site. And that's kind of like the first step. Now you've got the blog live. So making sure you're sharing it on social media. If you've got an email list, let them know you just published it. Drive some traffic to that post. Put a little bit of social ad budget towards it too. So if you can boost a post on Facebook and drive a little more traffic to it, that helps a lot. And then I would say sprinkle in some promotion throughout the year. So if you publish a post in January or February, maybe reshare it in a few different ways from a few different angles throughout the year so that you don't just forget that you just published this post a long time ago. I think all those things can definitely impact, standing out. And I'll say in the construction space and the home improvement space, the bar is set a lot lower than in some other industries like marketing or tech. And so if you're doing just a few of these things, you have a really good chance of standing out.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, for sure. So you actually answered my other question there was, about promotion. So that's great. And then I think just, also remember the fact that when you're talking about competition, if you're working on a local level, say you're, a roofer and you service a, 50, 60 mile, radius or whatnot, you're not trying to, rank some content for, top spot on Google for US wide, right? So there's, kind of local SEO that plays into there. And without getting, overly technical on how to optimize your posts and stuff like that, when you're coming up with topics, I mean, how focused should you be on actual keywords, search terms, that sort of thing?
Yeah, and that's something that we didn't get to dive super deep into today, which is kind of the technical end of keyword research and how to pick topics, which is why I suggested the 2 brainstorming techniques I did for blog topics, because I think those lend themselves to the user and addressing what somebody is searching for. But yeah, absolutely, especially at the local level, you can do a lot of things to talk about like what are kitchen design trends in your area, say Chicago, and that will help narrow who you're competing with. And then there's some other things that you can do in terms of like your Google My Business profile and building some of those things out. But yeah, I think the more you can localize it, which you saw some examples earlier where we talked about, getaways in a certain area or towns in a certain area. And it could be just local lingo that about and other people talk about in a certain way. It could be a neighborhood or, a city or a town. And so I think if you can incorporate that into your content, then you're better off. And then you're competing more at the local level and not at the national level.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Spencer, I mean, as they say, you can't improve what you don't measure. So I think that saying lends itself well to this kind of stuff. If, you're comparing year over year data, I think people need to make sure that they have tracking in place and they're looking at their analytics, just paying attention to it, because otherwise you can't really benchmark anything. So that's also key. Spencer, I want to thank you for taking the time to put this lesson together for the Academy members. I'm sure everyone's going to get tremendous value from this. As you see on the slide that's up here on your screen, if anyone wants to get in contact with Spencer, please do. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's got a good team behind him. And I'm very happy that you decided to mentor the Academy members.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed it. And yeah, this is a topic that I'm pretty excited about, not just now, but over the next several years, as you just get more and more blog content going. So yeah, thanks for having me.